Hi, Trisha. Thank you so much for having me on. As you say, I'm Phoebe. I'm 21 and I'm a student in London and a supporter of Just Stop Oil. You might recognize me as one of the people who threw soup on Van Gogh sunflowers. And I did this in support of Just Stop Oil, demanding that the government immediately halts all new licensing for oil, gas, and coal, because apparently we're going back to the dark ages in our energy policies. Only weeks before Anna and I threw soup on the painting, 33 million people were displaced by the floods in Pakistan. And yet it took two young people throwing soup on a painting to get more people talking about the climate crisis, the millions of lives that have been destroyed by climate disaster. Well, wouldn't it be better if the government listened to their own experts? I don't think that they should listen to a 21-year-old's opinion on how we avert climate catastrophe. But the United Nations have said we can have no new oil and gas. The International Energy Agency have said no new oil and gas. The IPCC report says it, the most comprehensive global report on the climate crisis. They all say no new oil and gas. And yet the government still isn't listening. It's been left to ordinary people like me to sound the alarm bells until they can refuse to listen no more.
But Phoebe, isn't people power where it's at? I mean, the government. Let's be honest here. Government listening to the people. One person. But wouldn't it be better if you created a movement where far more people were keen to get involved? Whereas, and I'm going off what our previous guest said. Isn't ticking people off by suddenly, occupying a motorway or something like that? Might that get you more detractors than people actually on board? Wouldn't it be better to educate people and talk to them and get them to be the groundswell that changes the government rather than paint on shop windows or soup on paintings?
I mean, pick up a history book, Trisha. Successful movements of social change always cause disruption. I sit here today as living proof that civil resistance works. I'm queer and born female. The only reason I'm able to vote, able to go to university, hopefully someday I'll marry the woman I love. And that's because of people who have taken part in civil resistance before me.
Yeah, but I mean, would you say that in this day and age, there's probably civil resistance that gets more people on side than more people potentially against? I keep coming back to, I would think it'd be fantastic. And I've seen smaller things done where you had something in Hyde Park, or maybe the police knew before, where you actually educated people, because most of the education that people get about things that you're talking about is through the newspapers and through the mainstream media. And God knows they're not on your side.
Well, wouldn't it be great if the government implemented the solutions that we have, like moving towards renewables, which are 9 times cheaper? I mean, your energy bills could be £400 rather than 3,600. Doesn't that make you furious?
Well, a lot of people are going to be furious about the £7 million cost of the Metropolitan Police, where maybe that could go towards people who are suffering in this country, people who can't afford to heat their homes. I mean, I hear what you're... Listen, I'm kind of eating a sandwich because I hear what you're saying, but I also do a whole series on housing and what have you. And there are people hurting out there, and they can't put that message together with your message because it seems too polarised.
Why are we insulating billionaires' pockets rather than British homes? Why are we spending £236 million a week subsidising focil fuels? Put that on the side of a bus rather than throwing Just Stop Oil under the bus.
Yeah, but I hear and I sympathise, but when you hear the average person hears 7.5 million cost to the Metropolitan, and then they see pictures of people putting paint or looking like they're destroying paintings, and we're seeing you there when you were with I think that's you there, but people look at that headline, 7.5 million cost, and that's what they focus on. That at the moment is I'd put to you a louder message that's getting people peed off, more so than the message you want to give. I mean, I try to do shows. I'm not a Just Stop Oil person, but I would class myself as being, wanting to bring these issues to the fore. Surely explaining to people and getting them on side that way, which takes a bit of time and effort. Surely that gets more people on side than soup on paintings. And I can't get to visit my loved one. I can't get to hospital. I can't take my kids, to visit Granny because this is all. We're stuck on the M4.
Well, I mean, if you think money is what people will listen to, and I thank you for giving me the time to say this, the government have made a loophole which in the windfall tax, which means that they've essentially given energy companies £11 billion last year. To put that in context, that's enough to give every NHS worker and every teacher a pay rise to match inflation.
Yeah, but I'm hearing both sides. But Phoebe, and as I said, I'm totally with you on the obscene amounts that energy companies made. You don't have to sell that one to me. And I'm totally, I'm vexed, to use my mother's word, way of saying it, that's not, that people are still being cut off from power and these flipping forced use of meters and what have you and all of that. Listen, I'm totally with you on the disparity, but it takes time to get to what you're talking about. And obviously, if the government isn't listening yet, isn't it time to change tactics?
Right now, our crops are failing and children are starving and people are freezing. We don't have time for a tactics debate because people are dying. As a young person, my future is at risk. We use these tactics because history has shown that they work. We use these tactics because we don't have any time to keep letting people die as a result of the government's criminal inaction. And actually, we know that these tactics are effective. All major political parties, other than the zombie Tories, have adopted our demand of no new oil and gas.
Yeah, but surely, how do you know that's down to your tactics? How do you know that? How do you know that they weren't doing it? Surely being involved in politics, actually getting involved in politics and doing it from the inside is also a part of, getting where you, and I hear what you mean about, we've handed you SHIT, a bunch of, when it comes to the environment. I'm probably the most environmentally friendly person you'll find on TalkTV. However, I can see from the other point of view, you're not winning over any fans. Or is that not part of the deal? Do you not care that you might be alienating people that otherwise might be on side? I mean, our police guy reckons that it's people with Trisha and the private school educated and the posh people, that it's only those people that are getting involved, not the ordinary everyday person. They're the ones getting ticked off. So I'm giving you the other side of the argument.
This isn't a class war between middle class and working class. This is a war of ordinary people against billionaires. And Trisha, I've looked up your net worth. I know you're a multimillionaire. I'm a student.
Oh God, I wish I know about
ordinary people. What are you doing to help ordinary people?
Hey, babes. So number one, I'd suggest to you, and I've just said to you, that the press is not your friend, because, and you know that, the mainstream press will say and put online what they want people to think about you, which is why I want you on the show to actually talk to you and hear and listen to you. And I do hear what you say. So let me say, if I was a multi-millionaire, mate, I would not be doing a job like, I wouldn't be doing any job. I'd be off, in swanning around. And it's not for me to, but I mean, I work with mental health and all those sorts of things. I do a lot of things behind the side, but I'm trying to change the system from the inside. Listen, I've got a younger, and people hate me for saying this on TalkTV, I've got a younger kid, a non-binary kid. I've had to educate myself about that. They will definitely probably be agreeing with a lot of what you're saying. And I'm not having, I don't have a very different debate with them about what's going on. I'm just saying that the people in power who tend to be older, the very people who've handed you a bunch of when it comes to the environment, surely getting to them or winning them over and getting them on side is better than ticking them off, because they hold all the ultimate purse strings. They make the decisions. And I know what you're saying about, civil, disobedience is what gets people noticed. But maybe it's not working. Maybe you need to change tactics. Maybe it's not working. That's all I'm saying.
Trisha, if you have a younger child, aren't you terrified for their future? Because that's why I do this, because I'm desperate, because I've signed more petitions than I have bones in my body. I've written more letters to MPs than I can count. And it's my future that's at stake. So I will do anything non-violently possible.
Even if it costs money, even if it costs opinions, even if it costs all of those things.
I'm not even if it costs. I'm not out here to be like, believe it or not, I do have enough friends. We're here trying to make change. The suffragettes were famously despised. Martin Luther King was voted the most hated man in America when he was alive.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I just wish kind of, and it's for you, I just wish kind of that there was more of a discussion for those people who don't get it. I just wish they had somewhere to hear an in-depth discussion, and I do try to touch upon that. I've had guests on this show where we've talked about it, about environmental issues, and sometimes it's opinions are like a juggernaut. You can't just slam on the brakes and have them stop. Sometimes you've got to slow the thing down and turn it around. So I mean, it would be good if there was all I'm saying is if there was something like in a big park or meetings where these things were discussed so people can actually understand it, because all they see now is destruction and I can't get from A to B. And they don't seem, trust me, when people ring in, they don't seem to really understand it. It's not discussed, other than maybe in The Guardian or somewhere like that. It's not discussed in a way that people can get behind. And that's what upsets and concerns me.
Well, I'd love to invite you or to any of your listeners to come to one of Just Stop Oil's talks then. We hold them many times a week across the country in different cities. We hold them online. And come and learn what the media don't tell us, because I'm as mad as you are that it's been left to me to make the greatest crisis humanity has ever faced newsworthy. It's so serious what we are facing. We're heading towards mass famine, our crops failing, whole countries lying underwater. This is so serious, and it's not making headline news every day. I don't know why it's been left to me to throw soup on a painting to make this newsworthy.
What about the people, and I've got to put the other view, Phoebe, so what about the people who say that if you're so concerned, leave the comforts, and I don't know, I mean, I'm guessing you're at work, are you? You have a job? Because I'm looking at all of the comments coming in. People are saying, the thought is that, oh, you lot, you're all rich, you don't have to work, you don't do anything, you probably live off our money, and this is what you do. Is that a line pushed by the media that's untrue, or is there some truth in it? I mean, are you working? Do you have a job and you have to take time off to do things like acts of civil disobedience, I should say?
I'm a student, but I cannot believe that we're talking about my personal life when the crisis we are facing is so serious. Did you not hear what I told you, that our crops are failing? We lost a third of our crops. We're predicted to lose half of our potato crops. You might have heard it, but I don't think you're listening, because what I study at uni and my personal life does not matter when there's not going to be food on our shelves, when people are losing their homes in floods, wildfires.
Phoebe, I do hear you, but it's my job to put put, to talk about or ask questions that other people are asking. Now, I do hear you. I absolutely hear you. I grew up in East Africa. I mean, when you're Googling my net worth, please Google my life. I grew up as a child in East Africa. And I've got to say, my parents were out there, came from the UK. My mum came from the West Indies as a Windrush nurse to help out. My parents went to a newly developed Tanganyika to assist people at ground level to actually, and my dad, trust me, you're a right winger compared to my dad. My dad was slightly to the left of Che. He got off his bum and he went out to a third world, a developing country when I was a kid. And that is where I grew up. And I grew up watching my parents, who were activists, who were on picket lines, but they actually got their hands dirty. All I'm saying, not everybody can do that, but there is a perception, rightly or wrongly, of well-spoken, moneyed kids throwing soup and paintings and what have you. There is that perception. And I'm just trying to ask you questions that ordinary people out there are asking.
Well, I think ordinary people should be asking the government why they're not switching to renewables, which are 9 times cheaper. And if you grew up in East Africa, you must be even more aware than I am of the terrible famine happening there. There's 36 million people facing severe famine due to drought. Their crops are failing. Children are starving.